In a quiet place where the wind speaks softly to the trees and silence becomes a teacher, there is a simple truth that many forget while chasing wealth in noise and haste. Wealth does not arrive like a storm. It moves like water, finding its path through stone, patient, unseen at first, but unstoppable once guided correctly. Those who understand this never fight life, they align with it. There is a practice spoken of in old traditions, not as superstition but as reminder. Two humble things are used: clove and vinegar. One carries warmth like a burning thought that clears confusion, and the other holds the sharpness that dissolves what is stuck. Together they represent cleansing and awakening, not of the outer world alone, but of the inner vessel that receives abundance. When the mind is heavy with doubt, wealth cannot remain. When thoughts are scattered like dry leaves in wind, opportunities pass unnoticed. The first step of true manifestation is not asking for more, but becoming ready to hold more. Just as vinegar purifies what is clouded, a person must allow old beliefs of lack to dissolve. Many carry invisible burdens, memories of failure, inherited fear, and silent doubts whispered by past experiences. These are like dust on a mirror. The reflection of prosperity is already there, but it cannot be seen clearly. And just as clove carries a deep, steady strength, the heart must learn stability. Wealth is not attracted by desperation. It is drawn to calm certainty. A mind that knows its direction becomes like a steady flame, untouched by passing winds. In practice, one is reminded to sit in stillness, not to beg, not to chase, but to observe. In that observation, thoughts begin to settle. The noise of wanting fades and something deeper emerges, the awareness that abundance is not outside, but flowing all around like air. At this stage, intention becomes important. Not the loud intention of desire, but the quiet intention of alignment. One does not say, "Give me wealth because I lack." Instead, one begins to feel, "I am ready to receive what flows naturally toward clarity and purpose." In ancient understanding, wealth is not only coins or possessions. It is opportunity, timing, wisdom, relationships, and the ability to recognize value when it appears. A poor mind can stand beside gold and still see dust. A clear mind can stand in simplicity and see abundance everywhere. The symbolism of clove and vinegar teaches a deeper law. Before adding anything new, remove what is no longer needed. Before expanding outward, cleanse inward. Before asking the world to change, soften what is within. Many seekers fail because they try to plant seeds in soil still filled with weeds. They desire growth but refuse release. Yet nature never makes this mistake. A tree sheds its leaves before new ones appear. The river does not cling to old water. It flows forward without hesitation. So too must the mind learn release. In the stillness of reflection, one begins to notice that wealth is not far away. It is delayed only by resistance. When resistance dissolves, paths open that were always present but unseen. A conversation turns into an opportunity. A delay becomes protection. A loss becomes redirection. This is the quiet intelligence of life. As awareness deepens, gratitude naturally arises. Not forced gratitude, but the kind that appears when one finally sees how much has always been present. Breath, time, learning, and unseen support all forms of wealth that were overlooked in pursuit of more. And in that gratitude, a shift happens. The mind stops chasing and starts attracting, not by effort, but by resonance. The teaching is simple, yet it demands sincerity. Cleanse what is heavy, stabilize what is scattered, and allow what is aligned to arrive without resistance. Clove and vinegar are only symbols. The true transformation happens within the one who understands them. And when the inner space becomes clear, wealth is no longer something to find. It becomes something that recognizes you. Inner cleansing before wealth arrives. Wealth flow begins when the mind is cleared of old beliefs, doubts, and emotional clutter that block opportunities. Wealth does not enter a life that is already filled with noise, confusion, and unseen emotional weight. Before anything external begins to change, something internal must first become still and clear. Just as a cup cannot be filled with pure water if it is already filled with muddy residue, the human mind cannot receive abundance if it is occupied by old thoughts that have not been released. This is why the first movement toward prosperity is not action in the outer world, but cleansing in the inner world. Many people believe that wealth is only a matter of effort, strategy, or timing. While these play a role, they are not the foundation. The foundation is the state of consciousness from which action arises. If the inner state is heavy with fear, doubt, jealousy, or past disappointment, then even correct actions produce limited results. It is like planting seeds in soil that has not been prepared. The seed may be good, but the ground cannot support its growth. Inner cleansing means observing what lives quietly within the mind. It is not about forcing thoughts away, but about seeing them clearly so they begin to lose their control. Old memories of failure, repeated stories of lack, and inherited beliefs about limitation often sit in the background like hidden dust. They shape decisions without being noticed. A person may think they are moving forward while silently repeating patterns of the past. When this is understood, the idea of cleansing becomes very natural. It is not an act of rejection, but of awareness. One begins to watch thoughts instead of becoming them. In that watching, space is created, and in that space something new becomes possible. Wealth requires space to enter, just as light requires an opening to pass through a closed room. This cleansing process is not instant, nor is it dramatic. It is subtle, like morning mist slowly lifting from a field. At first, nothing seems different, but over time, clarity begins to appear. Decisions become lighter. Emotional reactions lose their intensity. The mind starts to respond instead of react. This shift alone begins to change the direction of life. A person carrying heavy internal baggage often feels that opportunities are scarce. Yet the scarcity is not always outside, it is often within perception. When the mind is burdened, it cannot recognize what is already available. Even small chances appear insignificant or untrustworthy. But as inner clarity grows, the same world begins to look different. Paths that were always present start to become visible. This is why cleansing comes before accumulation. Nature itself follows this law. The sky clears before rain nourishes the earth. The river sheds obstruction before it flows freely. Nothing in existence moves forward without first releasing what no longer belongs. In the same way, a person must allow old patterns of thinking to dissolve, not by struggle but by understanding that they no longer serve growth. As this realization deepens, the mind naturally becomes lighter, and a light mind is like fertile ground. It receives, absorbs, and transforms whatever enters it. Wealth in its truest sense is not only money but the ability to receive life fully. And that ability begins the moment inner space is cleared enough to let life flow without resistance. Symbolism of clove and vinegar. Clove represents inner strength, stability, and focused intention, while vinegar symbolizes cleansing, release, and removing stagnation. When the inner space begins to clear, something subtle but powerful starts to change in the way life is experienced. It is not that the outer world suddenly transforms overnight, but rather that perception becomes sharper, lighter, and more open. This openness is what allows opportunities to be seen where previously only obstacles were noticed. In this state, life does not feel like a constant struggle, but more like a flow that can be understood and gently guided. Most people remain unaware of how much their inner condition shapes their outer reality. Thoughts are not just mental events, they are energetic patterns that influence decisions, reactions, and even the ability to recognize timing. When the mind is crowded with unresolved emotions and repetitive doubts, it becomes difficult to sense direction clearly. This is why many efforts feel blocked or delayed. It is not always the absence of opportunity, but the inability to perceive it at the right moment. As clarity deepens, something remarkable happens. The need to force outcomes begins to fade. Instead of chasing, there is a sense of alignment. Instead of pushing against life, there is a willingness to move with it. This shift does not mean passivity, it means intelligence in action. Actions become more precise, words become more intentional, and decisions carry a sense of quiet confidence rather than urgency or fear. In this stage of inner development, even setbacks begin to lose their heavy meaning. What once appeared as failure is now understood as redirection. Delays are no longer seen as denial, but as preparation. This change in interpretation alone reduces mental pressure significantly. When pressure decreases, creativity naturally increases. The mind that is not under constant stress begins to notice patterns, connections, and ideas that were previously hidden under emotional noise. Wealth, in this deeper understanding, is not only something that is acquired, it is something that is recognized and allowed. Many times opportunities are already present, but they do not appear valuable to a mind shaped by scarcity. A person who believes in lack will overlook abundance even when it is close. But as inner clarity grows, perception expands. The same situations that once seemed ordinary now reveal potential. This is why inner refinement is more important than external accumulation at the beginning of transformation. Without it, even increased resources can be lost, misused, or unrecognized. But with it, even small resources can multiply because they are guided by awareness rather than confusion. A clear mind acts like a steady lamp in darkness. It does not change the surroundings, but it changes what can be seen. There is also a growing sense of trust that develops in this process. Not blind belief, but experiential trust built through observation. One begins to notice that life responds differently when approached with calm awareness. Doors open not because of force, but because timing and readiness align. Conversations become meaningful and connections feel purposeful rather than random. In this unfolding understanding, abundance is no longer something distant or separate. It is experienced as a natural flow that was always present but previously unnoticed. The more the mind settles, the more life reveals its hidden order. And in that order, wealth is no longer chased as an external goal, but received as a natural outcome of inner clarity, balance, and presence. Wealth is alignment. Not chasing true abundance comes from being mentally and emotionally aligned with opportunity rather than desperate pursuit. As inner clarity continues to deepen, a more subtle transformation begins to take place in how desire itself is understood. At first, desire is often loud, restless, and urgent. It feels like something missing that must be obtained from outside. This creates pressure in the mind, and that pressure often leads to rushed decisions, emotional imbalance, and scattered effort. But when awareness grows, desire slowly changes its nature. It becomes quieter, more refined, and more intelligent. In this refined state, desire is no longer driven by lack but guided by purpose. A person no longer thinks, "I need this to feel complete," but instead begins to sense, "This aligns with the direction of my growth." This shift may seem small, but it completely changes the energy behind action. Actions born from lack often drain energy, while actions born from clarity tend to restore it. This is why some efforts feel exhausting while others feel naturally flowing, even when they require the same amount of work. At this stage, the mind also becomes more observant of timing. Instead of forcing situations, there is a growing sensitivity to when action is appropriate and when patience is needed. This awareness of timing is one of the most powerful aspects of inner development. Many opportunities in life are not lost because of inability, but because of poor timing or impatience. A mind that is calm and clear is more capable of recognizing the right moment to act. As this understanding matures, the sense of separation between self and opportunity begins to dissolve. Wealth, success, and progress are no longer seen as distant destinations that must be reached through struggle. Instead, they are perceived as movements within a larger flow that one can align with. This creates a profound reduction in inner resistance. When resistance decreases, energy that was once used for worry becomes available for creation. In this state, even simple actions carry greater impact. A conversation can open unexpected doors. A decision made with clarity can change the direction of months or even years. The reason is not magic, but alignment. When the inner world is stable, the outer actions become more precise and effective. There is less waste of effort, less confusion, and more meaningful results emerging from smaller inputs. Another important change that happens is the softening of fear. Fear often arises from imagining future lack or recalling past loss. But when awareness remains rooted in the present, fear loses its grip. The present moment does not contain the burden of imagined futures. In presence, there is only clarity of what is here and what is needed now. This simplicity reduces mental burden significantly and allows better judgment. Over time, a person begins to trust their own perception more deeply. This trust is not based on ego, but on repeated experience of clarity leading to better outcomes. As this trust strengthens, hesitation decreases. Decisions become faster, not from impulsiveness, but from confidence rooted in awareness. This is a key difference that shapes the quality of results in life. Wealth in this expanded understanding is not just accumulation, but flow. It moves toward those who are aligned, present, and clear. It responds to states of mind more than effort alone. When the inner environment is stable, life begins to organize itself in ways that support growth. And in that natural organization, abundance becomes not a struggle to obtain, but a reality that unfolds steadily and intelligently. Release creates space for growth. Just as nature sheds old leaves, letting go of past failures and limiting thoughts creates space for new success. As understanding deepens further, a quiet maturity begins to form within awareness. This maturity is not emotional excitement or intellectual achievement, but a steady sense of inner balance that does not easily get disturbed by external fluctuations. In this stage, life is no longer interpreted through extremes of success and failure, gain and loss, but through a more continuous flow of experience. Everything becomes part of a larger unfolding rather than isolated events to be feared or celebrated excessively. When the mind reaches this level of steadiness, its relationship with uncertainty changes completely. Earlier, uncertainty may have created anxiety, leading to overthinking or rushed attempts to control outcomes. But now uncertainty is simply seen as the natural texture of life. Nothing needs to be fully known in advance for movement to happen. This acceptance creates a powerful inner freedom. Instead of trying to control every detail, there is a willingness to respond wisely to whatever appears. In this state of openness, perception becomes highly refined. Small signals that were previously ignored begin to carry meaning. Opportunities are not always loud or obvious. Many arrive quietly, disguised within ordinary situations. A casual meeting, a delayed event, or even a temporary obstacle can become a turning point when seen with clarity. The mind that is calm and attentive can recognize these subtle openings, while a restless mind often misses them completely. Another important transformation in this stage is the disappearance of inner comparison. Comparison creates constant measurement of self against others, which often leads to dissatisfaction or pressure. But when awareness becomes stable, the need to compare reduces significantly. Life is no longer viewed as a competition, but as a unique unfolding for each individual. This shift removes a large amount of mental burden and allows energy to be redirected toward constructive action rather than emotional reaction. As comparison fades, appreciation naturally increases. There is a growing ability to recognize value in simple things: time, relationships, learning, and even silence. This appreciation is not forced positivity, but clear recognition of what is already present. And in this recognition, the mind becomes more receptive. Receptive mind is essential for growth because it is open to learning, adapting, and receiving new opportunities without resistance. In this phase, action also becomes more effortless. Effort is still present, but it is no longer strained. There is a sense of flow within activity where work feels like expression rather than burden. This does not mean challenges disappear, rather, the relationship with challenge changes. Difficulties are seen as part of refinement, not as punishment or blockage. This perspective reduces internal friction and allows smoother progress even in demanding situations. Gradually, life begins to feel more synchronized. Events seem to align in ways that support movement rather than hinder it. This synchronization is not random, it is the result of reduced internal resistance. When the mind is no longer fragmented by fear, doubt, and excessive desire, it becomes more attuned to timing and direction. Decisions made from such a state tend to be naturally aligned with long-term benefit. In this deeper understanding, wealth is no longer pursued as an external target with urgency. Instead, it becomes a byproduct of alignment, clarity, and presence. It flows toward a life that is organized internally, stable in awareness, and open in perception. And as this stability continues to grow, abundance is experienced, not gratitude shifts attraction of abundance. Recognizing existing blessings transforms mindset from scarcity to abundance, naturally attracting more opportunities and prosperity. As this journey of inner refinement reaches a deeper stage, something very subtle yet profound begins to reveal itself, the realization that nothing was ever truly missing. The sense of lack that once drove endless striving starts to dissolve, not because external circumstances have fully changed, but because perception itself has shifted. What once appeared as absence is now understood as misalignment of awareness rather than reality itself. In this mature state of understanding, the mind no longer operates from urgency. Urgency is replaced by presence, and presence carries its own intelligence. There is no longer a constant feeling that something must be achieved immediately for life to become meaningful. Instead, meaning is experienced within the process itself. This reduces psychological pressure significantly and creates space for clearer thinking and wiser choices. At this stage, even ambition takes on a different form. It is no longer fueled by insecurity or comparison, but by a quiet desire to express potential. This kind of ambition does not burn or exhaust, it unfolds steadily like a natural extension of inner clarity. Because it is not driven by fear, it does not create imbalance. Instead, it supports sustainable progress that feels aligned rather than forced. A key transformation here is the disappearance of internal conflict. Earlier, there may have been constant tension between what one desires and what one fears. But as awareness deepens, this internal division begins to settle. Decisions become simpler because they are not pulled in multiple emotional directions. There is clarity about what feels right, and this clarity reduces hesitation. When hesitation decreases, momentum becomes more natural. In this condition, the mind becomes highly efficient without effort. Thoughts are no longer scattered across unnecessary worries or imagined scenarios. Instead, attention remains anchored in what is relevant and real. This focused awareness allows tasks to be completed with greater precision and less exhaustion. Productivity becomes a natural outcome of mental clarity rather than forced discipline. Another important shift is the way life events are interpreted. Situations that once seemed random or unfair are now seen as part of a larger intelligent pattern. This does not mean every event is immediately understood, but there is a growing trust that understanding will unfold in time. This trust reduces resistance, and where resistance once existed, acceptance creates flow. As flow increases, life begins to feel less like a struggle against circumstances and more like cooperation with them. This does not remove challenges, but it changes the relationship with them. Challenges become situations to be navigated rather than obstacles to be feared. This shift alone transforms emotional experience significantly, making life feel lighter even during difficulty. In this deeper awareness, gratitude becomes continuous rather than occasional. It is no longer dependent on special achievements or external gains. Instead, it arises from simply recognizing existence itself, the ability to think, to experience, to learn, and to grow. This ongoing gratitude further stabilizes the mind and enhances receptivity to new possibilities. Over time, a quiet realization settles in. Abundance was never something distant to be chased. It was always a natural state that becomes visible when inner distortion is removed. Just as clear water reflects light perfectly while muddy water cannot, a clear mind reflects opportunity, timing, and direction effortlessly. In this final understanding, wealth is no longer experienced as something separate from life. It becomes an expression of harmony between inner awareness and outer action. When this harmony is present, life begins to unfold with a sense of ease, intelligence, and quiet abundance that does not need to be forced, only recognized.